our observation hive, and we've taken a frame from one of our beehives behind me and put it into this observation hive so that people could see the activity of the bees. In the center of this frame, you'll see what we call brood. Underneath the brood that's capped is the baby bee, which will eventually hatch. On the sides of this frame, they have some stored honey, and then also there's a little pollen on both of the lower sides. Most of the bees that are in here are female bees, they're worker bees, so they're going to be constantly taking care of the brood and constantly taking care of the queen. There are some of the bees that they fly out, they get nectar, they bring it back and deposit it to some of the cells. And then when these bees are working really hard up in here in the corner, they're fanning the nectar to remove the moisture. And once it gets enough of the moisture removed, they'll end up capping it with wax.
So here's a picture of, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the queen. So you can compare the worker bees to the queen. Notice how long she is. She has this signature area up on the top. She's much longer and narrower, and she lays about 2,000 bees every day. 2,000 eggs every day. So she's really hard at work.
Busy.
Yes, and her life expectancy is like 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So usually in a hive this time of year, there's about 60,000 bees that are keeping the colony going. They all have a lot of jobs to do, and it's constant work.
Yes.
So how long does a worker bee live?
Well, go ahead.
In the summertime, it's usually about anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks because they're working so hard.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go out and gather, they have to come back and work and attend to the brood and also the queen. But in the winter, they live a little bit longer because they're not quite as active. So maybe I've read maybe 4 to 5 months.
So the queen really lives much, much longer than
Yes.
the rest of the bees.
Yes.
Okay.
So I just want to kind of show you this. You can see the brood here, and all the capped brood, soon from each one of those cells, a bee will emerge. And this shows the bee coming out. And I don't see any emerging right now, otherwise I'd have you film that. But anyhow, that's the bee coming out after being in their cell. Let's see if there's anything else I can show you that's wonderful.
Do you have any differences between the female and male bee?
Not on here.
Do you have a frame over here, an empty frame?
I do, it's a small one though.
That's fine.
And this is just a bee, honeybee with lots of different pollen on it. They collect pollen, they collect nectar. Do you want to talk about them bringing the nectar back and,
Yeah, how does
fanning?
that process work?
Well, they do, they collect nectar and they collect pollen. Sometimes you can actually see the bees' pockets filled with pollen. And so the pollen is really important for the bees. It's a protein and it helps to get the bees nice and fat. So
Pollen.
some of the pollen. And the nectar is what they use to feed the queen and feed the bees, and also it's used to be deposited to produce honey.
Great visuals.
Mm-hmm.
These are nice.
So there's several different sizes of frames. This is what we call one of our brood frames, so you can see that it's bigger. These we never take the honey off of. This is mainly just for the bees. So the queen will produce, she'll lay her eggs, which produces larvae, then they cap it, we call it a brood. And then they also, especially at this time of year, will start to produce honey for themselves because they're gonna need enough food to sustain themselves through winter. So you're gonna be seeing on these frames, eventually less brood, more honey, and more pollen. On this side here, if you can see on the bottom, that capped brood, it's more oblong. And we know that male bees will be produced out of that oblong brood. The flatter brood, we know that female bees will be produced out of there. Gretchen can also show you a picture of what a cell of a queen looks like.
Okay. Oh, okay. We also want to show you this one. Are the eggs and the larvae. And I will. What am I looking for? Oh. So right here is the queen cell.
Okay.
See how long it is?
Yeah.
And what makes the queen become a queen is that they're fed royal jelly.
Royal jelly.
Yep, royal jelly. That's what makes the queen a queen. All the bees get a little bit of royal jelly at the beginning of their lives, but the queen gets royal jelly the whole time.
I love it.
But if it's a male bee, they don't get royal jelly.
No.
And that's how you tell between the male and the
Right, that's true. Right.
So
Right.
the queen cells, you don't really want to see queen cells in your hive, because if you see them, every hive can only have one queen.
Right.
So if they produce another hive, or another queen, she's either going to be leaving and swarming with some of the bees, or she will die. They will accept the new queen and kill the past queen.
So one of the things that happen if the hive, well, there's a few things that would send a queen out of the colony. One is if the hive gets really packed and there's not enough room left for the queen to lay eggs. And it just gets really stuffy in there. And if that happens, the queen will make a decision to leave. And what will the queen do before she leaves?
Well, she ends up, she stops laying any type of eggs, and she stops eating. So she'll shrink her size to a size where she's able to fly. When she's really plump, she's not able to fly.
Okay.
But so she's planning this, and within 3 days, she's small enough that she's able to go airborne. And so she'll go, and she'll take about a third of the hive with her.
And they'll
Wow.
just fly and go. And then
Very
they'll
cool.
find a spot to hang out. So here is a picture of a swarm, and the queen started this and led to this spot, and then all of the workers that she's taking with her, hang out with her until some of the workers go and scout out another place for her new home. So they'll be like this for a while until that happens. So.
And hopefully you'll find it, and you'll be able to cut the branch, put it in a box, and put them in a different hive so that you
Right.
don't lose your hive.
Right. How long have you been part of this organization?
I've been just under 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm about 7, I guess.
Were you the founder?
One of them, yes.
Mhm. Wonderful
There
work
was
you're
quite a
doing.
few of us,
Very
yes.
important.
So we are, started this apiary here mainly for educational reasons. That's part of our mission is to make sure that we share this information with people and give them a chance to have a glimpse inside the wonderful life of honeybees.
Very nice.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I have a question, actually.
These are some different tools. I just brought a few tools.
Okay, that's fine.
So like this is the hive tool. This is used constantly. It's like your right arm. It helps you pry open the different frames so that you could look at it. A honeybee keeper needs to check their hive to make sure it's healthy. And to do that, you need to get in there, and it gets very sticky, and bees make something called propolis, which kind of seals each one of those frames. So you have to kind of use this to dig it out, and then you lift up the frame. Sometimes you might have to brush some bees off, so this is a little bee brush. And if the bees aren't, to help keep the bees calm, you could use a smoker. And usually we put in, this is lavender because it helps calm them. So that's what I use. I know you use lavender as well. And you kind of light this, and it sends a little bit of smoke, depending on how you do it, and you direct it in, and it just helps calm them. The bees end up eating a lot of honey, and they just stuff themselves with honey while you're working in, and it just keeps it calm. Here's just a little bit of honeycomb I like to show people. This was collected from one of my hives, but it's just so light, and you can really look in each cell. It's just amazing that they make this honeycomb. And then what I do is, if I have a lot of this left, I will boil it down and render it. So I just have different blocks of wax, and someday I'll use all my wax and make, candles or lotion or what do you do with yours? Have you used yours
We
yet?
just save it and give it to people who like to
Use
melt it
that.
down.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, so I'm on the city council, and I know we had an incident or a application this year for someone who wanted to keep bees in the
Right.
city.
Yes.
And so I know that part of the process is that you need to inform your neighbors and have permission from your neighbors. But it was interesting in that I think I learned that besides that honeybees are not like other stinging insects, and they're pretty gentle, and even though they do travel, and I know this gentleman changed the direction that his hive opened and made sure that there was plenty of water around, and talked to the neighbor, and then it ended up being that it was okay for him to keep them.
Well, Helen,
And-
let me speak a little bit to the ordinance.
That sounds
Okay?
good.
Because the ordinance, there wasn't an ordinance, and a few years back, I can't remember the year. But anyway, but we still had bees. So people in the bee club, felt that let's see what we can do to change it so that we're doing this legally. So I know that Mark Lenz did a lot of work on working with the board and getting the right and researching other bee ordinances. But anyway, through the Common Council did give us the opportunity to have an ordinance. So the ordinance states that in the city, you need to have 2 hives or less, and you need to keep it 20 feet from the perimeter of your property. And yes, you need permission from your neighbors, but they don't have to go around and ask. The city themselves will send a letter out and say, your neighbor would like to have bees, let us know if you have a problem with it. And so then if they do, or if they're concerned, then they'll notify them, and then they'll try to work it out. And just like that happened, they were able to work it out, and they were able to have bees, and they understood that they're not hornets or wasps, and they're not aggressive. You still have to be respectful of your neighbors and make sure that the direction of the bees is flying away. So there's things you can do. But I've had bees in town for many years now, and 7 or whatever, and there's never been an issue at all.
Nice.
So
Wonderful.
Well, I just thought that was something that maybe people don't know, that you
Right.
actually
Mm-hmm.
can keep them
you can keep them.
in a
That's a very good
neighborhood,
question.
and they get
And you need to be a good beekeeper and make sure that you're taking care of all of your supplies and not leave things out, and just ethically do the right thing. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, even if you live in the country and you keep bees, you have to be aware of your neighbors. Like, for instance, we have a beehive out in the country, and it's surrounded by farmer fields, and so sometimes the farmers will spray their fields. So you'll want to let your surrounding neighbors know you have bees so that they can notify you when they're spraying, because that spray can kill off your hives.
oh wow, okay.
Bees
makes
can
perfect
fly
sense.
2 miles to get
Yes.
their nectar
Okay.
and pollen. So they have a long haul. I'm guessing my bees come here. I'm within 2 miles of Crossroads. So they may be here right now. But if this all of a sudden was going to be sprayed, definitely have an impact.
Oh, definitely.
And in the city also, I mean, if people are fertilizing and a honeybee goes over there, they could bring that poison back to the hive and kill off the hive.
Right.
So it's difficult.
Wonderful to
Oh,
work
that
with
would
your
be me.
neighbors.
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess